YouTube Ozic going the Goat House is back. Grading some more signings here. This is our 7th video of free agency, and there's a bunch of trades going down. Keenan Allen just went to the Bears. Instant talk about those on our Twitter. I'll probably make a video tomorrow, Friday, kind of giving my full thoughts on all these trades because there's been a bunch of them. I got to catch up on that. But Hollywood Brown just got signed. We're going to grade that signing with the Chiefs in this video. Armstead, DJ Reader, Devin White, multiple of them. We have a spreadsheet keeping track of all the signings and my grades, free for everybody. Links pinned in the comments. Starting with Armstead, Arik Armstead, who went to the Jaguars with a little bit of a surprise. One of the big-time free agents available going into today, obviously. So this is big for the Jags. I mean, obviously they get better with this. It's a unique player. I'm a little surprised about the $17 million. I thought it'd be a little bit less based on where he's at in his career. Still very good. But 3 years, yeah, I thought he would get a 1 or 2 year deal for around $14-15 million. I'm not going to sit here and say 17 is an overpay. I think he's a very good, versatile player, so I think he's definitely deserving. But my reasoning for thinking he was going to get a 1 or 2 year deal on less than $17 million is 30 years old current like today, and has been declining a little bit. Usually when you say a player's declining, they're not playing that good anymore. That's not the case here. He's still playing very good, but he was such a unique high level player about 2-3 years ago, and he's not currently that anymore, but he's still very, very good and still very versatile. But definitely going to help the Jags. Again, he can play off the edge, over the tackle, 3 techniques, so that's going to help them in multiple ways there. Should mesh well with their defensive players. So overall, they get better. They get a really good player. He's still a really good player, and he's one of the top guys I had going into the day for free agency. So I know what would put it in the A range is, I would have preferred like a 2 year deal. 2 year would have been perfect. Again, I expected around $15 million, so not too much more here, but it should be fun. With him, and they're different players, but him, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, Roy Robertson Harris, they're all different players and different. They all seems like a few of those guys are pretty versatile and where they can align on the defensive line, so that it's going to be pretty fun there. So was not expecting this one today, what makes free agency fun here. Next, another A+. I think this is the 5th A+ I've given out through. This is our 7th video, so not too many given out. And this was one, Kendall Fuller to the Dolphins. So the Dolphins lose a bunch of guys. They're still making some moves. They just signed Jonathan Harris right before going to record this. I don't have the contract details. Maybe it's coming out, but I don't have it at the time of recording this. But that could be a sneaky good signing as well. Not as big as Fuller, but 2 years, $16.5 million, average of $8.25 million per year. Again, I made a rule for myself this year: do not give A+ out to 1 year deal. For multiple reasons I explained in different videos, but 2 years. So they got 2 year deal and a very good value deal here. So I'm giving an A+. Very solid corner. Almost getting better, it feels like. Earlier in the career, the other, Kyle Fuller, the brother, was better. And then he kind of declined, and I don't think he's anywhere right now. And Kendall Fuller been playing better. Commanders defense was struggling, last year. He's still playing at a high level. Specifically more of a zone coverage corner guy. He can play outside, can play inside. I would imagine he plays outside, but the fact that he probably get reps at both, I think that's great. To me, if you get, usually the slot corners aren't that valuable in terms of money, but the guys that play both, like do 2 jobs, I think they're more valuable, really. So I think, if you would have said it, if you could see the future and you said he give you multiple choice here. He either signing a 1 year $16.5 million. That's a little much. I was going to say 1 year $16.5 or 2 years $16.5. I probably would have guessed the first one. That would have been an overpay, but I would have guessed that the first one would happen. I figured someone maybe just overpaid him. So that kind of shows how how good of a deal the Dolphins got here. But solid zone corner, very smart, very instinctive. Will pair very well with Jalen Ramsey. Did not expect them to be able to land him. Did not expect him to be this cheap. But, I guess because, he's more of a cover 4 and cover 2 type guy. So he needs specific schemes. So maybe I guess that's why. And he's not the youngest corner. That's why he was a little cheaper. But this is it's a really good price range at $8.25 million. Under double digits per year. That's a really good price range, and I think that's seeing what the Chiefs been doing. That's what I'm talking about. I've been talking about a long time. Like I'm not a huge fan of paying corners big money. Like if you could find good ones for solid deal, like spend around that 12 million range on corners, but you get a guy that's worth that and you're paying him around this range. I mean, that's huge. That's kind of like the championship roster, formula with building your roster, how much you're spending. So, really like this for the Dolphins, as you could tell. A plus for them on that one. Just was another one I wasn't really expecting. DJ Reader goes to the Lions. He went for a visit because he got injured right at the end of last year. So they probably had to check out, see how he was long term on this season and maybe next season because it was a 2-year deal. I don't know how close to 100% he will be to start this year, but it seemed like he checked out, for long term, the rest of this year, next year. So that's good. This was a little surprising one too. Not after they said he was coming in for a visit. At that point you wouldn't be surprised if they sign him, but a very similar in terms of play style. In alignment to Aleem McNeil, who I'm a big fan of, was a big fan of out of NC State, and more so now, even more so now with the Lions. But both kind of those true nose tackles that kind of developed and play, can move around a little bit, could play that traditional D tackle spot as well. But both stud, high-level run stoppers. So that was a little surprising. Two of the same style player. They could definitely use both at the same time, especially on running the early downs for sure. And they both can get pressure on the quarterback too. But yeah, again, most teams probably would have viewed them as the same player. If you got one, you don't really go for the other. So I did think that was pretty unique, pretty interesting. Again, coming off the injury, he had multiple injuries last year in a very, very almost the same style player as Aleem McNeil. That's probably what's keeping it from being an A. But it's a B plus. I think very highly of it. Very good football player. I think he's a little underrated too. One of the best run stoppers in all of football. When him and McNeil are on the field at the same time, it's gonna be very hard to run the football on the Detroit Lions. They're already pretty good at stopping the run too. So it's gonna be early downs. You're gonna have to throw on them. You're gonna have to throw. So that's gonna be fun. So. $13.6 million again, pretty good value there as well. Thought he'd get a little bit more, but then again, got to factor in that he was injured multiple times last year, right at the end of the year. So it kind of makes sense there. But overall, I like this one for the Lions. It's gonna be curious to see how many snaps Reader and McNeil are at the same time. How many snaps are there with them on the field at the same time? It's gonna be interesting. But Lions, they've been a little quiet. They did make the Carlton Davis trade. Other than that, they've been a little quiet, so it's good to see them make a splash move here in free agency. Next one, Curtis Samuel to the Bills. So a little bit of a splash signing at the receiver position for the Bills. This might be one of maybe the most interesting signing in free agency, and I guess define interesting, but I don't really mean it in a good or bad way necessarily. Just curious to how they're gonna use their receivers basically because of this signing. Overall, is a good receiver, and he might be even better now that he has Josh Allen throwing to him. They obviously have a plan for him. He's really good in the slot, really good gadget guy. He can burn somebody deep as well. And that's pretty good when it comes to Josh Allen ball, Buffalo Bills ball there. But the interesting part here is. Yeah, he's mainly done his work from the slot. A lot of his work and his best work from the slot. And Khalil Shakir was a big riser, breakout guy towards the end of last year. And he is strictly a slot guy, too. He had one of the more, but actually right next year, I think Curtis Samuel had the 12th most snaps from the slot from receivers. And Shakir had 13th most snaps. And remember, he wasn't playing that much earlier in the year. So that's a lot of snaps from the slot. In somewhat of a short amount of time to get, 13th most. But yeah, Shakir was like that at Boise State too. Boy, he's a slot guy, for sure. There's really no changing that. So that tells me they probably have plans to play Samuel outside, a lot more than he has in his career, which it's a little up in the air, and if he'll be as good. I think if he has Josh Allen as quarterback, he's gonna be good. But so it might be a little bit different unless they're just upgrading over Shakir, which Shakir had like half the catches as Samuel last year. I know he had Josh Allen as a quarterback, half the catches and about the same amount of yards. So I do like the emergence, the potential of Shakir there. So it's very interesting, that this is the type of player they went for. But again, he's going to be good. It's going to be fun. This is kind of what makes free agency fun when a signing like this happens. Like how are they going to do this? They obviously have a plan. It's going to be fun to watch here. So yeah, I mean, last year out of guys that aligned at any of the receiver spots, who had the most snaps for the Bills, it was Stephon Diggs, obviously, Gabe Davis, and Dalton Kincaid, who can line up in the slot and outside. He's kind of like a receiver-type tight end, if you will. He was actually second most snaps in the slot for tight end, so there's more slot snaps there. But kind of going back, Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Dalton Kincaid led the Bills in snaps out of the guys that can play like a receiver alignment. Okay, so you have Diggs, who's an outside receiver that, he could line up inside. You have Gabe Davis, who is an outside receiver. And then you have Dalton Kincaid, who is a tight end that could, of course, align a lot in the slot, outside and in line, but mainly use Dawson Knox for in line. So Diggs is Diggs. He's still there this year. So Kincaid is Kincaid. He's still doing his thing. They have big plans for him. So, and they got Mac Hollins, who's more of a big body outside receiver, but Curtis Samuel, you would think, is a top 3 snaps. So kind of taking that Gabe Davis role in terms of snaps, but he's a totally different receiver than him. So curious to see what the plan is. And then you have Shakir. So I think basically my point is I think somebody's slot snaps are going to get taken away. And it could be Samuels, who hasn't played for the Bills yet, just based on what I've been going on with the signing for a long time, because I think it's very intriguing. I'm just curious to what they're doing here. But I guess there could be snaps where they have Diggs outside, Kincaid outside, and Samuel in the slot, or Diggs outside, Samuel outside, Shakir in the slot, or Kincaid in the slot. So I guess there's different varieties they can go. It's just Samuel's been a big slot guy, so it's going to be very interesting. But I gave it a B. Overall, I think it's a guy that's going to be a good player for them. I do think he relies on his athleticism a little bit, but $8 million per year. This is base value, by the way, too. I think the max was $30 million. So overall, I think it's pretty solid. Pretty solid deal. I'm just kind of wondering, it's probably going to take some snaps away from Shakir, which, again, I don't love that part of it, but if their logic was, hey, let's just, go get better, it's a little bit up in the air who would have been better, but I could respect that. Let's just find a way to get better here. They're a little limited financially, so I could definitely respect that. Overall, good. Gave it a B. Just very curious to see how they're going to divide up the snaps, specifically in the slot position. Devin White went to the Eagles. I kind of like Devin White. I know he's been struggling recently, and I didn't love him last year. Getting some snaps taken away from him, getting outplayed by other linebackers. Even not named Levante David. So didn't really love him last year, but I mean, the year the Bucs won the Super Bowl, like he looked like, that run down at the end of the season and in the playoffs, he looked like the very best defensive player in football. Did that mean he was in general or going into the next year? Absolutely not. But just in that amount of time, in that short amount of time, and in an important time, he looked that good. So the talent's got to be in there somewhere. I still think he has upside. I still think he could be good. He's a very solid blitzing linebacker, which they were using him a little bit less on, because I guess it got predictable. Maybe is the only thing I can think of there. But so I think he'll come in with Philly and needing a change of scenery, could play better. I think Fangio will use him in the blitz game a bit. So I actually was going to really like whoever signed Devin White. I kind of had that predetermined, I guess, depending on the price. I think $7.5 million is pretty solid. I think what's keeping it from being an A is it is a little bit of a mystery. I mean, it'd be a little bold of me to put an A on, next to Devin White here. I even know I'm grading the team. But the year the Bucs won the Super Bowl, they actually ran a lot more man coverage that year than they did now. They kind of shifted more towards, and they ran zone back then too, but they shifted a lot more cover 3, and the cover 4s in there as well, but a lot of cover 3. And I think where Devin White gets ripped a lot is his zone coverage. He gets kind of turned around and a little bit lost. Man coverage, it's usually just you're athletic and you're physical. You can run with NFL players. Zone coverage, a lot of it's up here. So that's kind of the difference usually. So maybe I was kind of hoping he went to like more of a man coverage team to kind of go back, make it a little more easier on him in coverage because he's athletic, long, physical enough to run with guys he has to cover, right? But the Eagles are kind of, Vic Fangio, I should say, is kind of the same thing. He used to run a lot of man, but lately it's been a lot of cover 3, so it's almost the same as the Bucs here. So we'll see. Maybe they have a plan. Maybe he runs more man, but it almost seems like a similar situation as the last year Bucs. So this actually could backfire, but it is only a 1-year deal. Overall, I'm going to be bold and say White plays a lot better this year. I'm excited to watch him, so I'll go B+ on that one. And then Hollywood Brown to the Chiefs, a big one here. Cardinals traded away Rondale Moore. They needed receivers on top. If they had Rondale Moore and Hollywood Brown, they needed receivers. They do have the 4th overall pick, but they lose that. They lose Rondale Moore, and now they lose Marquise Brown. So it's not great for the Cardinals here. I didn't tell myself, I made a rule going into this year, no A+ on 1-year deals because free agency is all about the longer term. The long term is more of an impact for a organization, obviously, so it makes sense. So this is the highest possible I can give the 1-year deal. If I still did the A+ on 1-year deals, which I definitely like the way I do it now, it makes a lot more sense. It'd be handing out way too many A+ too. But if I still did it, it'd be an A+, okay, with this one. Because $7 million 1 year, I think Hollywood wanted to go make – it's smart. This is really smart by Marquise Brown. Like, him and his agent, got to clap it up. Got to clap it up. I'm guessing the Cardinals offered him more. I'm guessing other teams offered him more. I mean, Curtis Samuel got $8 million per year for the Bills. Hollywood Brown could have fit well for the Bills. That would actually made a lot more sense than Curtis Samuel for them. I don't know if they offered or not. Not that it's the end of the world. We already Curtis Samuel is going to be good for them, but because he's more of an outside receiver, which makes sense for the Chiefs too. There's been rumors about the Chiefs going for this slot receiver and that slot receiver. Rice played in the slot a lot. Again, he can do both, but he played in the slot a lot. This makes a lot more sense. Really good fit. The speed, the home run ability, the separation. It's just going to fit Chiefs ball, Mahomes ball. It's great. Only $7 million, but okay, going back to how smart it is for Hollywood Brown, he gets an A+. I don't really care if it's a 1-year deal. If I were to grade the player and his agent, A+, because, and it's not a guarantee. If he plays bad, then that's going to backfire, but I don't think he's going to play bad. I don't think anyone thinks he's going to play bad. But so he's going to go ball out for the Chiefs, and he's going to make even more money next year's offseason than he would have this offseason. This is what's going to happen. Cap's probably going to go up again. Receivers are getting paid more and more each year. It's genius. He went to a team where he could win a Super Bowl, and it best fits his style. He's going to get production. He's get the ball a lot. He's going to ball out. It's just so smart, So 1-year deal again. Don't give out the A+ for the 1-year deal. So that's an A, highest possible you can be on a 1-year deal here for sure. Highest possible A you could be. Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome for the Chiefs here. On to the rest of these signings. Some of them happened late last night. The spreadsheet you're looking at is available for you. Link pinned in the comments. It's free. Just click on it. Go to it. And there's a lot of signings on it. It's behind me. Those are kind of just guys that signed somewhere that I don't have the contract details. Maybe 1 or 2 of them. Maybe I missed the details. I got to look at that more, but once we get it, we will grade them. Starting at the top, Rayshawn Jenkins to the Seahawks. It's an interesting one because it's a safety that has spent time around the box and playing a lot of man coverage, and he's been a playmaker here and there. He had a down year this year, but Mike McDonald needed that safety that could, man up on tight ends in the box, and I guess kind of what Kyle Hamilton did. He's nowhere near what Kyle Hamilton was this year, but it's a decent player, and he has that experience. So it's a good fit for what Seattle was looking for. Just not the best possible player they could have got there, but good player still. B+ there. They also got George Fant. It's one of those where they got 2 young tackles. Charles Cross is going to start, but Abe Lucas, is he going to battle Fant? It just feels like a signing where it's like, yeah, you might have to start, but we really don't know if we want you to, but we're going to pay you like a high-end backup pay. So those, I'd never really love those. But Fant was, he helped Houston a bit last year. $7 million's okay for him. I was a little surprised 2-year deal. I thought 1 year. Give it a B-. It's okay. Vonn Bell back to the Bengals. They're stockpiling safeties, it feels like, because they had Daxon Hill, who could be a slot guy, a blitz guy. Mike Hilton's a slot corner, though it also blitzes. But yeah, Dax Hill can pretty much play any spot and look at the slot or the safety positions. But he's a safety, and then you have Jordan Battle, who was playing pretty well at the end of last year, the Alabama rookie, and then you signed Geno Stone. Now you signed Vonn Bell. So the stockpiling safeties, they all should work out pretty well. Vonn Bell played pretty well when he was on the Bengals last. Give it an A-. 1 year, $6 million. Pretty solid overall. I don't think he plays the amount of snaps he played when he last was on the Bengals, but maybe pretty close, perhaps. Darrell Taylor hasn't fully figured it out. He's a decent pass rusher. Could be better in terms of run support, but he is an edge rusher. $3.1 million per year. I mean, it's pretty cheap. I gave that one a B+. Thought they would try to find ways to get better. Vikings got Jerry Tillery, kind of a random one. Gave it a B-. He's been known as a bust because he's a first-round pick, but he's been getting more playing time recently, so maybe he's going to find his stride here. But, the Vikings would, get somebody. Yeah, because they got Bullard back. This is kind of another Bullard here. So that they, go big or go home. But overall, it's not a bad deal, B-. A- for the Steelers getting DeShon Elliott. That's a really cheap deal with an experienced safety, experience playing strong and free. So I think that helps them. It's not like the super flashy safety, but it's a really a really good value deal. Only $3 million in 2 years. And then we got we already went over Tim Settle. Yeah, I know it's pretty cheap. I'm surprised by the 2-year deal. I thought maybe he'd be a minimum or little closer to the minimum. I think the Texans kind of messed up a little bit. I mean, they've been adding some talented players, but they traded Collins. They almost got Armstead back in that deal. Didn't end up doing it. Maybe they're going to try to sign him in free agency, turn their attention to Hunter. They offered Sheldon Rankins then. $1 million less than the Bengals did. Than the Bengals, $1 million more. They got him. So I think Tim Settle, they got Fatukasi as well, but I think that Settle was like down like option C or D or F maybe. Probably not that far. I'm skipping letters too. But they, so it wasn't like their prime what they wanted to do. Decent run stopper. Give him a C+ on that one. Wonnum is an interesting one for the Panthers. I mean, he got how much per year for Wonnum? It was 6.25, 8 sacks last year. 8 sacks. He $6.25 million per year. That's pretty decent. Pretty decent price. More sacks in the millions there. Young. When the Vikings drafted him, he was kind of like a raw freak athlete, upside guy, and that kind of proved to be what it was. He finally started kind of getting going. He would have moments before last year, but he kind of got going, and he'll make an impact on special teams even too. So I think there's some potential for this to be an absolute steal here. But the only thing I don't love is this kind of, the Panthers are kind of replacing Burns with, maybe some minor pieces here, but we'll see. They could add Chase Young or Clowney too, but we'll see. I went over DJ Reader, went over Kendall Fuller. Back to Kendall Fuller too, being something I forgot to mention. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I gave that an A+. So I already said enough, but I think 2 years is the perfect amount for Kendall Fuller. I already said that, but it was a perfect amount. Random one as well for the Vikings. Trent Sherfield, shifty receiver, could play special teams, for sure. That's probably what this is because they have other receivers, but really cheap. I don't know if this might be the cheapest deal that I've seen from notable players. So, I mean, really cheap. It's just, he got a lot of snaps for the Bills last year, but only had 80 or so yards. So that wasn't the best look for him. I give it a B+, really cheap. We went over Devin. We went over those ones. Coleman Shelton for the Bears. Interesting one too, because you got the starting center for the Rams. Rams typically get a little bit, McVay in that scheme gets a little bit more so out of guys. So if he starts for the Bears, can you expect him to be as good? And he wasn't that great, but he was okay on the Rams. Maybe not. So don't get super high on him, but it could help because the Bears needed a center. Only $3 million. There's some teams paying $12 million. They're much better centers, but $10 million, whatever, $8 million. So I would rather go this. Yeah, some of those guys that got around $7-8 million, I would much rather go this route. $3 million on a little bit lesser of a guy on Shelton. My issue, and I gave it a B overall, I think it's pretty good, close to being a B+. My issue is maybe the Ryan Bates trade. That's a guy that has some experience at guard and center, but been a backup. And the Bears traded a 5th-round pick. I questioned at the time, like trading for a backup, and then the Bills cut a bunch of guys, including the starter. I think they would have cut him. But it felt like they're gonna make him their starting center, but they got another center. So obviously these guys are gonna compete. They're gonna play which one looks better. So that makes the Bates trade a little bit more head scratching than it already was. So that's kind of my issue when this signing happened. Kind of looking at all of that though. So there you have it. The latest signings. My phone. Cameron Curl is going to the Rams. I did predict that. I was starting to think the Jets could get him, but the Rams badly needed a safety. What is that? 2-year, $13 million. That's unfortunate that how many is that per year? Is that 6.5? 6.5. That I'm gonna be very high on that. It's either gonna be an A or A+. I wish Curl was more of a playmaker, like ball production. That's the only thing with him. But I liked it. I love it. I might make that an A+, because I like that the Rams are valuing safety finally. I wish he was more of a playmaker. That's a good fit. It's why I predicted Curl to the Rams, because he's really good cover 4. Rams are a big cover 4 team. So I do like that. It's going to be A or A+. It'll be in the next video, even though you got a preview of it right now. Yeah, it's funny because I predicted in the predictions video, I predicted Rams, and then my second guess was Jets. And on Twitter the other day when the Jets lost Whitehead, I'm like, watch out for Curl, because they lost, they run a lot of cover 4 and they lost Whitehead. So that made it that much more of a battle, I thought. So he ends up going to the Rams. So very interesting. Why free agency is fun. You see the fits, they happen, then you see some signings that you go like, huh, that's interesting. And then you think about them like, okay, yes, that's a fit. And then there's some that they're weird, and it's like, oh, how are they going to use this guy? That's why it's free agency's fun. There's all types of different deals and scenarios and fits and situations here. So there you have it for this one. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Check out that spreadsheet. Check out the playlist full of these videos. I'm sure more will come unless things really start to slow down. I got to go over all these trades. Been going over on Twitter, but got to make videos out of them. There's been so many, but I'm kind of waiting. What I've been waiting for is L'Jarius Sneed trade, if it's going to happen at all. We will see. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.